All right, guys, welcome to the Digital Barbell Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate each and every one of you that joins us every week. The topic of the day is 7 lessons men need to understand if they want to build muscle and get stronger in their 40s. How about that?
All right.
If you're a woman, we have a large demographic of women that listen to this podcast too. So don't tune out. You can share this with a man in your life also. A lot of these principles carry over to both sexes. But speaking as a man and the person who came up with this, that's why it's entitled the way that it is. These 7 lessons also I turned into a kind of a daily drip of content for the men out there. There's 7 emails I will send you every day for a week that goes into more detail with all 7 of the lessons that are in this.
1 email a day for 7 days.
Right, what did I say?
You said 7 emails.
7 emails a day?
I don't know. You said
1
7
email
emails
per day.
for a week.
Right.
Yeah.
You get the point. You can check the description of this episode or the show notes of the podcast to sign up for that. There won't be any spam or anything like that associated with it, but I really think it'll be helpful because we'll go into more, and I'll get a little bit vulnerable in those emails too, more so than on this podcast too. But anyway, check that out if you have time.
All right.
I'll preface this conversation with just the fact that, maybe you came across Digital Barbell a couple years ago and I was already in my 40s and I already looked the way that I do now and post the kinds of foods that I eat, but that was not always the case. Blakely's had a sneak peek into the life of Jonathan over the last 25 years, really. And, I was a completely different person in my 20s and a lot of my 30s.
Met me.
Also, got to give Blakely a lot of credit for the lessons I've learned that we're going to talk about in this episode. But really, the thing I want to emphasize to the guys out there is if you're not in shape right now, or you used to be in shape and you've fallen off, that's okay. I've been in your shoes. I had terrible nutrition. Exercise was a 4-letter word to me. And slowly through time, you really can improve on the things that will change your health, allow you to get strong, allow you to build muscle, if you pay attention to the kinds of things we're going to talk about in this episode. I mean, picture the worst diet in the world full of just the most junky food you can think of and the most sedentary you could be. And that was me. I've had this conversation with clients who have seen some of the pictures of myself that I posted in my 20s. They're like, whoa, I just assumed you were always in shape. But no, it's not the case. So if you are not in shape right now, all this stuff can still help you. You ready to get into lesson number 1?
Go.
Okay, lesson number 1. It's all mental.
All right.
We're starting off with some mindset stuff.
Yeah. So what do you define as mentality?
Yeah, and the reason we'll talk about what I think about as mentality, but the reason this one is first is because everything else that we're going to talk about after this, all the other lessons, none of them matter if you can't conquer what's going on in your head. You could have the perfect workout plan, but if you can't straighten things out in your mind, the things we're going to talk about, none of the plans matter if you are weak-minded and if you can't overcome the demons in your mind that keep you from being consistent with everything else that we're going to talk about. People like to get fixated on the little details like, what are the best carbs to eat before I work out? Should I use free weights or should I use machines or should I do CrossFit or like what's the best training split? But none of those things matter if we can't accept our mindset being the thing we have to work on most and accept 2 important things that we have to do in relation to our mindset.
Okay.
The first one is we have to accept the fact that we need to change. That might sound really obvious, but if you want a result, you want to change your health, your fitness, your confidence, your physique, but you want to keep doing the same things that you've been doing up until this point, well, you're never going to get the result that you want. You're going to continue to stay the same, struggle with the same things unless you change the daily actions that you do. Like I said, really overlooked, but you'd be surprised how many people are frustrated they're not getting a result from continuing to do the same daily habits that they do. So what's the problem with that? Well, change is really freaking hard. I mean, if it wasn't hard, we would all be in great shape. We'd be rich because we'd have the most amazing spending habits. But changing from what we're doing now is hard because we want to go to extremes. We want to do drastic things. And we also find this strange comfort in staying the same. Even if we don't like where we're at, we know what to expect. Like we get familiar with the feelings that we have, and it makes change really, really hard. Everything jiving with that so far?
So what's number two?
And that definitely overlaps male and female.
Yeah.
I can definitely attest to that. The second thing we have to do once we accept the fact that we're going to have to change is we're going to have to not quit. Again, sounds super simple, but like I said, we all love this challenge mentality where we're going to go really hardcore on things. We're super committed at the beginning of a venture, a challenge, all this kind of stuff. But eventually something goes wrong, and this all or nothing mentality clicks in, and we say, man, if I can't do it perfectly, what's the point of even trying? I knew I wasn't going to be able to do this. And we quit. We cannot quit if we want to become stronger, more muscular in our 40s, because we will end up the same way that we've been in the past. So how do we not quit? Well, we accept at the beginning that we're going to mess up. We just know that perfection is an illusion. It's not possible. It's not necessary to achieve great things. So it's not even one of the goals in the beginning. We're just going to accept that we're going to mess up and we're not going to be perfect.
All right.
I was going through a dedicated fat loss period, and I was doing really, really good. I even hired a coach to help me do it. Not that I didn't know how to do my nutrition, but I knew the extra accountability would help. All I had to do was stay on track with this thing. We went to a party over at some friend's house. They had a bunch of snacks out in bowls all over their giant kitchen island. And let's just say I blacked out and I ate pretty much everything I could see in sight during that day. By all accounts, like I had failed. Like I woke up probably 3-4 pounds heavier the next day, and it felt super tempting to be like, I paid all this money for this coach. I'd already made a bunch of progress. I basically just lost the progress I've already made. What's even the point? I could have quit right then, but I knew the mental game was the most important thing. I got right back on track, finished out the time with that coach, and ended up at the leanest I've been probably in the last 5 years, only because I didn't quit.
Awesome.
So you might be surprised to know that even coaches sometimes mess up and overeat and miss workouts and all that kind of stuff. But the key is just to not quit.
And even coaches need coaches, and coaches need accountability.
Yeah,
That's
definitely
another piece of
helps.
it. Yeah.
Okay. Lesson number 2. You ready for this one?
Right.
You might want to plug your ears. This one might be offensive to the really sensitive ears out there. Guys, don't be a weenie. That is lesson number 2. Don't be a weenie.
What does that mean?
A weenie to me is what I used to be. So I feel like I can call my fellow men out on this because I was a big time weenie. And when I say don't be a weenie, I'm not talking about machismo and being mean to people and putting down women and being derogatory towards people, or even putting on like a fake persona of macho-ness around town. Like, what are you doing looking at me like, oh, I'm going to assert my authority over you. That's not what not being a weenie is about. Being a weenie is what I used to be when I was in my 20s, and I blame my genetics for my being out of shape. I blame the fact that I had bad knees for why I couldn't do any kind of jogging or lift any kind of weights. I blamed my circumstances for what I ate. I would say things like, it's so hard to eat good on the weekends. I took no personal responsibility for my own actions that contributed to where I was. I was a victim of every single circumstance. I was weak mentally. I was weak physically. I was a big time weenie. So if we're going to not be a weenie, we have to accept that that's what we're doing right now, which is sometimes a hard pill to swallow, especially as men. But we have to take responsibility, personal accountability, and accept the fact that even when bad things happen to us in our life, maybe we were a victim at the time that it happened, but the next moment we have a choice to do something different. We're no longer a victim. If you want to turn things around, guys, you can't be falling prey to peer pressure in every single situation and then saying things like, well, what was I supposed to do? They offered me so-and-so to eat. Or what was I supposed to do? I was short on time. Not becoming a weenie is largely about overcoming excuses, overcoming the all or nothing mentality, and not being such a wimp and a pushover when things in your life come up that give you the opportunity to not do what you say you want to do. Is that a hard pill to swallow?
Yeah, that's good.
This isn't also about like being a jerk to yourself too, because depending on your personality, you might swing the other direction and be like, I know I can't do anything right. Like, being hard on yourself. Part of not being a weenie is being gracious to yourself when you mess up, but then moving on to the next chance you have to do something right.
Right.
It builds mental toughness and it changes your results also. Whew, I'm going to be out of breath by the time. Too much talking for me in this episode. I have to reach down and get my water. Okay, lesson number 3 for men who want to build muscle and be strong in their 40s. Get strong. What does it mean to get strong? Like even once I decided to start exercising and working out and taking my health more seriously, I didn't get strong, and it caused my body to not change in the way that I expected it to change.
You exercised, but you didn't train.
Yeah, and even beyond that, like just the things that I did, like weren't leading me to get stronger. You know, a lot of people out there, guys especially, they're going to group classes, they're exercising a lot, they're doing all the things on the nutrition side of things. They feel like they're eating pretty good, they're not going off the rails, whatever that means, but they're not actually getting strong, and therefore their body is not changing.
Looking back, can I interject here a little bit? Looking back at when you were starting to like exercise, I could see how like the other two things you mentioned were kind of like, were still like in there. Like you were going to the CrossFit classes, but you had your certain weights you were using. You wouldn't push yourself beyond like, this is what I do. It was kind of like in the like, I
was doing
I'm not saying
something.
you were being weenie, but in that, it was still that realm of like, I squat 185. Like, this is what I do. You know, it was kind of like that mindset.
Yes.
And you weren't pushing yourself until you had someone look at you and be like, you can do this. You need to do this.
Right.
And this is how to do this.
And I think it's important. What you just said is so true. Men, as you decide that you're going to take on this lesson and get strong, it's going to help you with the first two things that we talked about. You're not going to be able to be a weenie if you are truly in the process of getting strong, and you're not going to be able to get strong if you're not on top of your mental game, because there are going to be times where you're afraid of the weight that's on the bar, but you mentally know, if I get underneath there and I start, I can do this. So you're going to these kind of steamroll on themselves.
Yeah, you can start, but then you can also plateau and still be in that phase of like, okay, well, I'm doing something, but I really don't want to go to that next phase.
Yeah.
I really don't want to like, get under the bar now. I'm fine where I am.
Absolutely.
I'm working out. That's good enough. And you can still
Exactly.
kind of be in that mindset.
But for me, in my own transformation, those things, what you just mentioned, they weren't enough. And I think a lot of guys are stuck in that. Like, I'm doing CrossFit, I'm doing Peloton, I'm doing HIIT classes, I'm doing a bunch of reps with light weights, but those things aren't actually making you strong. So you're not going to get the transformation that you might be having in your mind.
Or I'm 50 years old now. I shouldn't lift anything over my body weight. I'm, this old and I shouldn't push myself anymore. There's also that side of it. For
sure. And getting strong isn't about lifting X number of pounds on a barbell. It's being honest about where your strength is now and being willing to challenge yourself to improve over time. I think about our clients that are in their 60s and their 70s. Is the number of pounds on the bar that they're lifting, like just in sheer numbers, super impressive? Not really. But for their current fitness level and their cohorts, in the improvements that it's had in their longevity, their confidence, their joint health, all those things, it is truly impressive because they've committed to getting strong and they're seeing the benefits of that. When you commit to getting strong, there's going to be times that you don't want to do it and you do it anyway. You get underneath the barbell, and all those little things add up over time to build your mental confidence. I can think of an example. Like I've probably told this before on the podcast, but we went to a concert. I think it was an outdoor music festival, and I was like deep into my strength training era right now. And like, I was feeling really confident. I had done so many hard things physically that I didn't know I could do, that it just built up this mental strength to me. And as I stood there in the crowd and looked around, as sometimes I think about in these situations, like, something could go wrong here. Like, I'm not going to lay out all the possible things, but it could be a chaotic situation. And some people are going to have to step up and help take control of the situation. And I felt like I was ready to do that. And it wasn't because I could back squat a certain number of pounds. It's because by getting strong, I had built up the mental strength to know I can take on a physical challenge if it arises, to help protect other people and to help get things sorted out in the situation. So there are benefits to getting strong other than just the number of pounds that you can lift and the amount of muscle that you can build. But before we move on to lesson number 4, there are going to be physique benefits that you get from getting strong besides just the number of pounds on the bar. The hormonal response you get to heavy weightlifting at challenging effort levels cascades across all the muscles in your body. So doing heavy squats and deadlifts will also make your chest and biceps look better on the beach next summer. Okay, that's enough on lesson number 3.
Lesson 4.
Okay, deep breath. Lesson number 4. This is going to hurt, guys. I'm sorry in advance. Eat like a freaking adult. I added the word freaking in there. It's, I couldn't think of a better, more direct way to say it. But guys, Why are we still running around eating snacks out of little packages like children? Like, why are we eating goldfish? Why are we eating chocolate covered pretzels? Like, if we truly want to change our results and we want to set ourselves up for success in our 40s, 50s, 60s, beyond, we need to start eating like adults. Now, before you think I'm going to like give you a list of foods you can and cannot eat, let me just tell you what my diet looked like in my 20s and 30s and see if this kind of resonates with you. It was Chinese food every week. Routinely hit the Krispy Kreme drive-thru because I was working for myself. I was out in my car all day. Chipotle burritos, as big as a newborn baby. Those were regular occurrence. Ultimate cheeseburgers from Jack in the Box. I would at night have a snack of like 4 pieces of bread, toasted, buttered with cinnamon and sugar drizzled over top of it. And then maybe like on a different night, have 4 or 5 bowls of Honey Nut Cheerios or grape nuts sprinkled with sugar before I went to bed. If any of those things ring true to your diet right now, you are not eating like an adult, and we got to start to improve that. Because if we want to look like an adult, have muscle, be stronger, be confident, carry ourselves well, what we put in our mouth has a huge impact on it. It's not just what we do in a gym. Now, do you have to always eat like an adult? Of course not. As you've heard us preach on this podcast many, many times, it's the sum of what you do over the course of weeks, months, years, all that kind of stuff. So when you do go to that music festival and you accidentally have 6 beers and a funnel cake, that was the rare occurrence.
Yeah.
The rest of your week wasn't full of ultimate cheeseburgers and Chipotle burritos. It was full of what we're going to talk about in a second here. What should you eat to eat like an adult? If you want to be lean, muscular, and confident enough to take your shirt off at the beach without obsessing over your diet, try to fill your plate with lean protein, as many vegetables as you like and can fit on your plate, enough starchy carbs to fuel your performance, which for most guys is about a cup, a little more for bigger guys, per meal, and not a lot of added fat. I'm meaning like we're not going to add bacon, avocado, cheese, dressing, sunflower nuts, whatever. We're not going to add a bunch of added source of fat to our meal. If you want to eat in a way without that supports your goals without having to obsess about logging the calories in MyFitnessPal, eat like that most of the times, and that will automatically take care of how many calories you're eating. It'll make sure you get enough protein to fuel your muscle growth and plenty of carbs for your get strong ventures. Also, fellas, if you want to turn things around, you got to be honest about your relationship with alcohol. It's a hard conversation to have with people, but you could have a pretty good diet. You could be training pretty hard, getting strong. But if you're routinely drinking a lot of alcohol, it will absolutely crush your results and it'll absolutely crush your body composition. As far as the governmental recommendations for healthy intake of alcohol, they say between 1 and 2 drinks per day. But I would say if you are, and fellas, listen to me. When I say 1 or 2 drinks per day, that is talking about a Bud Light, not a double IPA that's 9% alcohol and comes in a 20-ounce can, okay? That's 5 drinks. That 1 drink is 5 drinks. It also doesn't mean George T. Stagg 130 proof bourbon that you have a 2-ounce pour of. That's 4 or 5 drinks, okay? We got to be honest with ourselves about how much we're drinking if we truly want to improve ourselves as we get older. I was going somewhere with that, but cutting back on alcohol, building meals that have a balance of those 3 things or 4 things that I said, and cutting back on the processed food in general is where the magic's going to happen. There's more coming in the email than we talk about eating like an adult, but that's enough for this one.
All right.
Okay.
Lesson number 5.
All right. Lesson number 5. We got to start tracking our workouts. What does it mean to track your workouts? It means that you are doing things that are able to be tracked and that you know what you did in the past, so you can look ahead to the future, look at your current workout, and you can make sure that you're making progress. This kind of goes back to why people end up not getting strong. We're just doing random things in the gym. We're doing what feels good that day. We're only doing group classes where there's a large random element to it that's not trackable, and we don't really know if we're getting better or not. If we're going to build muscle and get stronger, we need to take advantage of progressive overload, which is just a fancy way of saying that the weights that we're lifting, the number of reps that we're able to do, it gradually needs to get a little bit harder over time. Not overnight, but over time. I celebrate with my clients every single day when they get 1 more rep than they got last week. And as we zoom out over the 6-12 months with those guys, they look like completely different people because they were tracking their workouts and striving to get a little bit better each time.
Yeah.
And, if you say, man, well, the kind of workouts I do, I can't track. Well, maybe that's part of the problem. Doesn't mean you have to like follow a rigid, training split where you're only doing, 3 exercises every single day, kind of like starting strength. We pull the best out of that approach in our training method, but we can still take advantage of progressive overload without it being super boring.
Yeah, we track what our clients do. We encourage our clients to track their workouts and track their main lifts, like their squats and their deadlifts, track their accessory lifts, like their rows and their curls even,
right?
And track their conditioning workouts so that if you're improving, what weight you're using, and that little piece makes such a difference too. If you watch your workouts and you're like, I did kettlebell swings at 35 pounds when I just started for a guy, and now I'm swinging the 53. Like, you can see that kind of stuff, and you can see that kind of progress if like you're tracking things and you just do a check mark box on the the conditioning part. You're not going to see improvement in all the different areas.
Preach. Good stuff. Right there.
This was one I preached on you about for a long time.
Yeah. Tracking your workouts also reveals to you if you're only doing what you like to do and what you're already good at. Like, how many guys are out there haven't squatted in 2 years because they just don't like squatting? Like, well, maybe it's time we, get a little more organized. We track what we're doing and we face the things that we're afraid of doing.
All right.
All right. Lesson number 6. We're almost done, guys. Hang in there. Train at the right intensity. You could do everything we said on the workout side up until this point, but if you are just putting in the, if you're just checking the box every single day, saying that you worked out, but you have the wrong intensity, you are going to spin your wheels and not see any big changes to your body composition.
Well, this goes hand in hand with the number 5, because if you're tracking your workouts and you always have the same weight and you always have like 4 by 10, always the 10 reps, then that's an indication you're not training at the right intensity.
Exactly. And like, this really matters because I'm pretty sure you don't have a lot of time to waste in the gym. Your time for your workouts is precious, and you want to maximize the amount of time that you're putting in. And this is where the importance of intensity comes in. If you don't know what intensity means, it just is the effort level, that you're putting in, because you could have 2 people that are following the exact same workout program, but one person is putting in intensity and one person is just checking the box, doesn't know anything about how hard they should be working. And you will see the person that's working at the right intensity skyrocket in their strength progress, their muscle building progress, and their physique changes too. So that's why it really, really matters. So when we talk about intensity, mainly we're talking, yes, about the conditioning and how close we work towards our maximum in conditioning. But when we're talking about strength and muscle, we're mostly talking about your strength exercises and your bodybuilding exercises, like a bicep curl. So how hard should we be working, fellas? If I'm in person with you, coaching you, and I put a 45-pound barbell in your hand and I say, all right, start doing curls and stop when you're done. I'm going to watch you do that set of curls. And as I see you getting close to stopping, because I can see it in your face, if I walk up to you and I say, for every rep that you stop before true failure, I'm going to reach into your nose and pull out a hair. If I see you probably could have done 5 more reps and you stopped, whoa, that's going to hurt. And so if I tell you that, I guarantee you keep going and you really find what true failure and how close you can get to failure and how much more you can do than you think you can do. How about that for an example? I mean, that might just end up on like
we use a little
highlight reel.
In a lot of our coaching is, a lot of times it'll be like 3 or 4 hard sets, but then I switch it up and it's like accumulate 50 reps.
Yeah.
And people can really see how close to failure they can go if they're accumulating 40 reps, because you always just want to like do less sets. So you're like, I'm going to get to like 18 before I put this bar down.
Right.
And you can really feel like, oh, I can push harder in my other workouts. And that's really why I like to throw those in. So you kind of understand what it feels like to get close to failure. Sorry,
I just accidentally turned my mic up really loud. So in general, we want to work, you might have just said this, I was distracted by the microphone volume, but in general, we want to work where we're about 1 to 2 reps before failure. There's no extra benefit really from going to failure. It throws the risk reward ratio off balance too far towards the risk side of things. And you also have to look at the actual exercise that you're doing. And I talk more about this when we get to this email in the lessons for guys. But in compound, really heavy lifts like the back squat and deadlift, we treat it differently than a low risk, lighter weight exercise like a tricep extension or a barbell curl. So there is some nuance here that I think you should understand also. Okay,
right, here we go.
Are we ready for lesson number 7? We're going to periodize your training and nutrition to make your results easier and make your life better. How about that? What does this even mean? Well, when you look at guys who have made big transformations in their body, their strength, their muscle, all that kind of stuff, especially if they're older, in their 40s or whatever, they did not start on day one and just go in a straight line until they got to where they are today. It's not possible to make linear progress like that forever. We go through cycles the best way to do this, and what I'm advocating for in this lesson, is to set up your goals, set up the things that you're striving for with your nutrition and your training around your lifestyle and the times of year to make the results more frictionless. What I mean is that if you start a new workout program in October and you're coming up on Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, all those things, what if we structured your goals so that the goal during this time period was to build strength and muscle instead of trying to just lose fat? There's going to be abundant calories certain times of year. You're going to be wearing more clothes certain times of year. We can take advantage of that, squeeze out the most progress from those circumstances. You feel good about it because you're not fighting against social situations and all those kinds of things. And then you're super fired up when things are a little bit more calm and you have more time and attention and there's less calories around to pay to your nutrition, and you dial into a fat loss phase and we change your training to evolve with that. That's the cycle that makes this more frictionless than just trying to white knuckle your way to the end result all in one fell swoop, regardless of what work projects come up and what vacations you have planned and all those kinds of things. This is where so many people go wrong. And especially if they haven't done number one, where they have their mindset in the right place, they structure their training in a way and their nutrition in a way that makes life frustrating and their mental game isn't in check, boom, they'll give up right away. So there is a way to make this happen. We have an entire podcast laying out how to structure your training and nutrition for a year to go about this. And I think I put the link to that in the email chain, but I'll also put it in the show notes for this episode. Oh my gosh, that was the most talking I've ever done in a podcast.
You did great.
But I came up with this whole idea because I came across an old picture of myself and I was like, that guy didn't even know what he didn't know. And I've learned so much since then. And I see so much garbage out there that doesn't matter for people. That's just distracting them from the few simple things that they really need to do to make an extreme transformation. You don't need extreme measures. You need some simple lessons. Probably need a plan and some accountability along the way. Shameless plug, if you want to have me coach you, you can check the show notes for this episode also. But I want to take away the mystery from this, give you hope that if you're not where you need to be, where you want to be today, guys, you still can change. You still can be that fit, athletic person in your 40s regardless. So there we go.
Well, listening to this, I would say I hope women did stay tuned in because I didn't hear anything that wouldn't apply to women too.
You just wouldn't call a woman a weenie, probably.
Yeah.
But yes.
True. But yes. Yeah.
I agree.
All the lessons are applicable, across.
That's, so much of what we teach and what we coach our clients through is irrespective of gender and age and those kinds of things. We all need the same kinds of things. We just might need them tailored to our specific situation a little bit. And I can guarantee you the things that you need don't come from a doctor. They don't come in a bottle. They don't come from getting more information from TikTok or Instagram, those kinds of things. They're out there and they're within your reach if you're willing to put in the work. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Check the show notes if you're interested in working with me, or if you just have a question, you're welcome to reach out too. Have a great day.